things are just meant to be. But right here, right now, baby, I've never felt so free.
Welcome back, everyone. Another episode of the Ryan Beck Show coming at you. First of all, before we get started, I, of course, want to let you know our show's brought to you by BetterHelp. Do you want to throw yourself off a roof? Well, I have the answer to all of your problems. Are you overweight? Your wife left you? Your kids hate you? None of your dreams came true? You're poor? You're sad and lonely? Well, go on to this website here and then lay on a man's leather couch and tell him about the time your mother forgot your birthday when you were 8. That will solve everything. I'm kidding. We don't do ads over here. We value your time. We're not going to stop the show to do an infomercial. I have what's called a real job. I don't need money that badly. Not enough that I'd want to ruin my own show. Now, if you're a Yankee YouTuber, and this sounds like I'm making fun of you, get ready, because this episode's going to be your worst nightmare. But let's talk Yankees first, shall we? Some house cleaning from the last week. First of all, team's looking unbelievable. We come through late in games. Everyone not named Clay Holmes is pitching great out of the bullpen. First of all, Birdie, not the pitcher, the bench guy. Perfect bench piece. Because not only is he perfectly capable of playing every day if somebody gets hurt, he's the perfect bench piece because he's really fast and we're really slow. So, last 2 innings, although Rizzo got on in the 8th inning on Sunday with 1 out, and for some reason, Birdie started that game. Normally, I would say he should have come in there. That was the only game Birdie started. That was when Volpe was making frequent trips to the bathroom. Perfect segue, what a professional. Anthony Volpe. He needs to be hitting leadoff now. He's literally our best hitter right now. He's actually having a better start than Soto and Oswaldo. He just hasn't had as many giant moments. But his numbers are the best on the team. He has the best. I don't know if it's changed yesterday's game, but before yesterday's game, obviously very small sample size. I think he was leading baseball in batting average, on base, slugging, and OPS. And OPS plus. So, Volpe, leadoff, please, for the love of God. And Glaber will hit better if you hit him lower in the order, like in the middle of the order, like 5th or 6th. He had really good at-bats in spring with guys on base and less than 2 outs. A lot of ground balls with the infield back and sac flies, just like getting the job done in a way that Glaber, I feel like he wouldn't have at this time last year. I feel like he would have come up in that spot and hit a pop-up to third base or struck out. Austin Wells is doing exactly what I told you guys he was doing. Look at how good our pitching staff looks with Austin Wells behind the plate. Trevino's not awful. I don't hate him. But Wells makes the huge difference behind the plate, and he's a threat with the bat. He needs to be catching as much as humanly possible. Not only that, Stanton. Seems like he looks like we all thought he was going to look. I'm just saying, Trevino catches. Maybe Austin Wells should be our DH. Maybe old man goes and takes a seat on the bench and counts his money that he doesn't deserve. Just a thought. You can do whatever you want, Booney. I know you're a loyal listener. Clay Holmes. Let's stop with this. At the very least, let's treat him like he's one of our high-end relievers, but not Mariano Rivera. How about whoever pitches in the 9th inning is who we feel is the best guy for the 9th inning and not just Clay Holmes comes in automatically to give us all panic attacks. Carlos Rodon. So far, he's been our best starter. I mean, Luis Gil looked good. He only went 4 2/3. Here's the thing about Carlos Rodon that I really liked. He didn't have his best stuff on Friday in Houston. My favorite at bat of this game, he came up against Chas McCormick, who, believe it or not, was the Astros' best hitter in 2023 against left-handed pitching. And there was a base open. I think Diaz was up after him. I could be wrong. I get somebody with way worse numbers against lefties. Came up second and third, 2 outs, base open, and McCormick's their best hitter against lefties by far, better than Altuve, Jordan, Kyle Tucker, Bregman. Threw fastballs right by him, struck him out, ended the inning. Beautiful. Another question I have is, let's say we have a healthy starting rotation. Who's the odd man out right now when Garrett Cole comes back? I think it's got to be Nestor. What I will say, because this is my theory, we're better with Wells behind the plate than Trevino. Nestor's pitched to Trevino twice. Just give him a shot with Austin Wells, see what happens. I mean, this is my show. I'm the one saying I like Wells catching and that the pitchers pitch better, so I have to be consistent. He's thrown to Trevino twice. Let him pitch to Austin Wells. Let's see what happens. That's my theory. Okay, so before we get out of here today, you guys need me to set the record straight here in the Yankee YouTube universe. And what I'll say before we get going here, if you're a Yankee YouTube person and you feel attacked in the next few minutes, just conduct yourself better going forward. Conduct yourself with some integrity and try doing what's right instead of what the crowd is doing or what you think is best for your career. Don't DM me after this show and think you're going to handle this privately. I'm not only going to ignore it, I'm going to read it out loud on my next show and we're all going to laugh at you. So don't waste your time with that. Just going forward, if you're one of the bigger Yankee people on YouTube, it's 2024. That means you're subject to be discussed on a Yankee podcast such as this one. So here's what happened. Patrick Hennessy, he used to be on a show called Yankees Ave with Dan Rourke. But he also did his own show. He still does his own show. And he was one of the Yankee guys. He'd be on other people's show. He's known, and he's a polarizing figure. But that's why Dan put him on the show in the first place. Because he's a character. He's very entertaining. Even if you don't agree with what he's saying, he's an interesting guy. He shoots from the hip, and whether or not you agree with what he's saying, that's who he is. That's why he's on these shows, because he's an interesting person. Here's what happened. Now, I need you guys to understand. We hear about cancel culture a lot. I learned this from Opie and Anthony. Even if you don't like the person being canceled, you have to stick up for them, because if you're allowed to be canceled for jokes, then somebody you do like could be next. So on principle, you have to say, yeah, maybe I don't like Pat's Yankee opinions, but maybe stick up for the guy. At the end of the day, he's just a guy who's trying to entertain you and make your day better and give you something interesting to watch in between Yankee games. Now, Pat was on a show called Yankees Ave. Now, the reason that Dan has given for not having Pat on the show anymore and doing his own thing is that he didn't like the negative energy that Pat brought to the show. Even though Pat's just being himself and he's being the exact guy that you put on the show in the first place. Here's the truth. Dan is employed by John Boy Media. And the John Boy crew does not like Pat. So it's better for Dan's career to cut bait with Pat because they don't like him. What their biggest concern is not entertaining you guys. It is making ad revenue. And Pat is a loose cannon and they don't want him being a part of their channel. That's why John Boy has the energy of a heroin addict when he's doing Talkin' Yanks, because he does 47 podcasts a day. And by the time it's time to do Talkin' Yanks, this next award goes to the guy, Yankee with the shiniest necklace. So he's not allowed in the John Boy inner circle. That's why you never see him playing blitzball or anything like that. So Yankee YouTubers know that he's safe to attack. So what Pat did was he did a video, and this is what happens typically with cancel culture when people are canceled for jokes, is when I hear it being described to me for the first time, I laugh because it is funny and I'm not trying to ruin people's lives. Last year he didn't like that Volpe was smiling after he hit his first home run because the Yankees lost that game. It's not an opinion I even agree with, but you're allowed to have Yankee opinions, and I don't need to come fight you. Like, yeah, okay, I don't feel that way. Pat does. It's his show. So he tweeted it, and then he got attacked. People said, leave him alone. And I love Anthony Volpe. This isn't a Volpe bash, but that's just Pat's opinion. He printed the tweet off and went to an Anthony Volpe signing and tried to get him to sign it. That's funny. To me, that's very funny. And Volpe doesn't have to sign it, and he didn't. But that's a funny idea. Pat's just trying to entertain people. Derek from NYY Recaps. This made my stomach churn. And I like NYY Recaps. I watch it after almost every game. He decided to throw Pat under the bus. Now, I believe, I could be mistaken here, I believe Derek accused Pat of not having class. Derek said this while wearing an Uncle Sam hat. A grown man wearing an Uncle Sam hat on his show told Pat he was being immature. Now, here's why I don't like this. Now, you're welcome to have that opinion, and the guys on Foul Territory also had that opinion, which is a show that Derek works for. AJ Pierzynski said the very foolish Charles Barkley argument that if you're not a player, he said, oh, well, you've never hit a home run. Volpe hit a home run, something you'll never do. Sounds like the silly Charles Barkley argument that he makes only because he doesn't like Skip Bayless, that if you didn't play basketball, you can't talk about basketball. Sort of like how you can't criticize Joe Biden or Donald Trump unless you were also the president. Oh, no, we don't have that rule. We're allowed to criticize all politicians, but somebody says something about an athlete. Athletes can't handle it because they're prima donnas and they're little perfect princesses. Don't anybody make fun of me. Now, here's why this bothers me that Derek took his podcast and kicked Pat while he's getting dragged by the sports world. Pat, I know for a fact, has not only been on NYY Recaps, but he waits for his live stream to end because he doesn't want to compete with Derek's show, NYY Recaps, the biggest post-game show online. Now, one could argue that is a really good friend. I would argue that. What it really is And don't ask me who told me, but somebody you guys all really like told me that if you do a post-game show on YouTube that competes with Derek's show, you're banned from NYY recaps because you're competition. See, I thought we were all just random people out here talking about the Yanks, but apparently it's the mob. Now, he wouldn't do this to Bob Lorenz or Jack Curry, seeing as they also do a post-game show that competes with his, because the Yes Network is bigger than NYY recaps. So what he really does is bully shows that are smaller than him into not doing a show at the same time as him. Now, most people wouldn't say that on the air because they'd be afraid they wouldn't be allowed on NYY recaps. I don't care about being on NYY recaps. I don't want to sit there and fake laugh as he's hitting wacky sound effects. And then Volpe hit a double. You can't handle the truth. He's looking at you, kid. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. One of these days, Alice, one of these days. You're quite the character, Derek. Here's my point. You're supposedly a big Howard Stern fan. I've heard you reference it because I watched the show. Literally what Pat did sounds like something that Stuttering John would have done in the 90s. So, maybe, and again, don't DM me and think we're going to talk about this behind the scenes. We're not going to. Just maybe shoot Pat an apology for kicking him in his teeth when he was already being dragged by the internet. Maybe conduct yourself a little more integrity going forward. And this is my advice for Pat. The Yankees Ave show was really big, and you're clearly doing a show now that is not as big as the Yankees Ave. I used to be on another show. Most of you know me from that show, and the guy who was in charge of that show decided he was going to give me a lecture about what jokes I can and cannot say. Now, the reason you have me on your show is because I'm the funny guy. And I make jokes that go 100 steps over the line, and that's my charm. That's my Gilbert Godfrey little charm, is that's why you have me on your show. So I could have either continued doing the show and second guess every joke that came out of my mouth, wondering if I'm going to get lectured by Dr. Huxtable again, or I took the other lane, which was I'm going to say whatever I want, and I'm now going to make fun of that person, which is why I do this voice now. And I took that lane, and for a year and a half, you guys didn't see me anywhere. Until Felix felt the same way as me, and then went, I wonder what that Ryan Beck's up to. I wonder if his side of the story makes a little more sense. And that's why I'm before you today, doing this show. It's doing pretty well. Every time I check the numbers, seems like you guys are liking it. Comments are all positive. So I would say this to you, Pat. Keep trying to entertain people as best as you can. Don't worry what anybody else says. Don't worry about networking. Don't make any decisions because you want to be playing blitzball. Just put out the most entertaining content you can make, and make sure money isn't your number one goal. Make sure being entertaining is. And I think everything will take care of itself. And that's my advice to you as well. Do what you love and do what you believe in. And don't be driven by money, be driven by integrity. And until then, we'll see you next time. My name is Ryan Beck, and this is The Ryan Beck Show on NYYNEWS.